Hey, Tequila Peeps, and welcome to this episode of, let me move this over here, the Hombre Cave, where we're starting our masterclass on developing your palate for tasting tequila. Yay! I know I talked about this, and we finally are here. I know some of you guys have messaged me, said you're excited about it. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be a lot of learning going on, so I hope you guys are ready for it. And we're all going to do this together. Hopefully, if you don't have any, grab some right now. Grab some water. Keep some water handy. And if you have any coffee beans or coffee grounds, I don't have any up here with me, but those are good to have around too, and I'll explain to you why. But let's wait for some more people to get here. Let's check in with our subscribers. Frankish, hola, bienvenido, welcome. Glad you can make it today. Jan Neeson, hola. Hola, bienvenido. Glad you can make it. Glad you can make it to the masterclass. Hey, Chris. Welcome. Glad you can make it to the class. Good to see you guys. Hey, Johnny Soto. Bienvenido. Welcome. Welcome to the masterclass. Glad you can make it. Hopefully you guys have all of your supplies ready that we talked about last week. And then what we're going to do is every week I'm going to talk to you about what we're going to need for the next week. You got some tequilas that were ordered. Those will be coming probably next week or the week after. We'll work with those. Hey, Quicksilver 1934. Oh, good. Glad you're excited about it. Bienvenido. Welcome. Hey, Ivan. Glad you can make it. Wait for some more people to show up here before we get things started, so that way we don't have to repeat anything once we get things going here with it. So if everything has gone right for you, you should have your tasting journal, which is just a notebook, a blank notebook that you're going to use as your tasting journal. You should have cinnamon sticks. You should have cloves. You should have nutmeg. You should have star anise, however you want to pronounce it. You should have vanilla beans. And you should have black pepper. And you should have cardamom. So those should be all the spices. We're gonna have some more on the list for you to get to, some other things. Hey, Ruben, bienvenido, welcome. Happy Tequila Tuesday, sure, Taco Tuesday, Tasting Tuesday. That's what we're gonna call it. Happy Tasting Tuesday. Oh, thank you. The El Tesoro journals are what they gave me for when I do our barrel selections. So that's my tasting journal. So everybody grab your notebook, and inside the cover write tasting journal, because it's going to be your tasting journal. You're going to use it for tasting all the time. So that's part of what we're going to do with developing your palate. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to get any of the tequilas for today's class. I do have the baking spices and needs, except for, well, the tequilas aren't for today's class, so don't worry about that. That's for either next week or the week after. We did that so people have time to get them. So there's no tequila drinking for tonight's class. And it's probably going to be no tequila drinking next week either. So it's probably going to be 3-4 weeks out. So get your tequila order and get it ready for then. So then we'll do the tasting and stuff together on those. All right. Well, wait a few more minutes here for more people to show up. We should have some more people getting here. But don't worry about the tequila thing, because we're not going to really be diving into the tequila for a few weeks. We're going to do some other things first. So don't worry about getting any of the tequila for today's class, because we're not using any. So all the tequila drinking will be done in future classes, and I'll let you know ahead of time. But just get the orders in for those tequilas, and then I'll say, okay, next week we're going to start doing this, or we're going to start doing that. Because then we're going to start with Blancos first, and then we'll start moving into the aged tequilas after that. So I'll give you some ones to get for the aged tasting. All right, so I think we're good to go on starting things. So let's get things started a little bit. All right, so we're going to be working on developing a palate here. So what that basically means is, when you taste, hey, Esperez, welcome, bienvenido. When you taste the tequila, there's a lot of people out there that are like, oh, I don't taste the same things you do. So what we're going to do is we're going to train your palate so you can taste some of these flavors and stuff that people talk about when they do their tasting. Now, keep in mind that the tasting, notes and stuff are subjective, okay? People taste things in different ways. So if you're not exactly tasting the exact, things that a person is mentioning when they do their tasting, don't worry about it. Because honestly, some of them are complete and total bullshit. So, and you'll know which ones those are when you're reading through them. You're going, what? It's sometimes the tasting note stuff is an ego trip for people. When I do the tastings, I try to keep them pretty basic and pretty straightforward so people can relate to the flavors, but you'll have people throwing all kinds of stuff out there. And, if you taste something something comes to mind from something you've tasted, and when you taste the tequila and you want to put that in your notes, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Different people have different notes that they'll come up with based on their own personal experiences. So don't worry about that, and just put in your notes what you taste, and don't worry about matching everybody verbatim. Because you probably won't. You got your El Tesoro Mundial today. Oh, good. It's good. It's really good, right? It's a really good. People think that because it was in a Lafroig barrel that it's going to be peaty and smoky, but it's not at all. It's very tasty. It's super delicious. It's amazing. It's going to sell out. I know it will. Once people start tasting it and going, oh, wow, this stuff's really good, that will sell out. So I'm not worried about that barrel selling out at all. So if you haven't bought your refills and stuff, don't wait on it, because then otherwise you're going to be one of those people that are always messaging me going, well, I wanted to get more. What happened? And it's like, well, sorry, we sold out. And, it's first come, first serve with the collective. So some people already bought cases of it. So, because they know when I do buys, I don't deliver poor, bad tasting tequilas for the collective buys. So, all right, so let's talk a little bit about tasting notes and about the developing your palate. Now, there's basically 5 basic flavors that we look for when tasting, okay? And then the descriptions for those are there's sour, there's sweet, there's salty, there's bitter, and there's what's called umami. And umami basically it can be described as savory. So umami basically describes the type of flavors you get from like cheeses and meats and stuff. Okay, so it's more on the savory side of things, and so those are the 5 classes of flavors that you're going to be dealing with when you're doing your tasting notes. So write those down: sour, sweet, salty, bitter, and umami. U-M-A-M-I. Umami. Or you can just put savory. So those are what you're going to be looking for, and those the way you can basically classify everything. And then what we'll do is we're going to be breaking things down from there into different profiles. Okay, so like some of the different profiles that we're going to be dealing with are like herbal, floral, fruity, sweet, spicy, earthy, and wood. Okay, so those are like some of the classifications that we're gonna be breaking things down. So we're gonna be tasting a lot of different flavors, and getting to know them so we can identify them when it comes time to do that. All right, so the first thing that you need to really do in order to become, to expand your palate is to be adventurous. Taste everything, except, nothing poisonous, right? Everything that you can eat, taste. So like when you're preparing a meal and you have all of your ingredients out, taste every ingredient individually while you're making your dish, right? So if you have nutmeg, taste nutmeg. If you have thyme, taste the thyme. Taste everything individually. And really, when you taste it, think about the flavor and really think about what you're tasting to help you better identify it, right? Now, also know that, when you taste something, when you're going through, you want to make sure you clean your palate so you don't have overriding flavors. So, like if you're making something like, let's say you're making a pasta sauce, right? And you have oregano and you got garlic, and you have all these great spices and flavors that you're going to be putting into this pasta sauce. Taste the oregano and then go, okay, this is what oregano tastes like. So then you'll be able to identify oregano, right? And get familiar with it. And then think about it when you're tasting. Say, okay, this is what oregano tastes like. Put it in your tasting journal if there's any notes that come up that kind of tips you off on oregano. Everything that you taste, write a little note about it in your journal. So then you can go back and reference it. And, taste it more than once, over your lifetime too. Don't just taste it once and think you're going to be familiar with it. The more you taste it, the more you experience it, the more it's going to pop up when you're tasting something going, oh yeah, I know that flavor. It's going to be this. So, but between tasting your different things that you're sampling, ingredients, clean your palate. And the way you clean your palate is by using like a bread or water or a cracker with no salt on it, something like that, and just to kind of clean the palate out a little bit so you not have the residual flavors from what you just recently sampled polluting the new flavor that you're going to be tasting. Now, another thing too is that you want to make sure it's called kind of like shocking your palate, where you want to taste things too that are kind of weird and different from stuff that you've been tasting, so it kind of resets the palate a little bit as well. And we'll kind of go over that a little bit later. So you want to be adventurous, you want to taste everything, and take your time when tasting so you can just have some time to kind of really understand what it is that you're tasting and kind of get a feeling for, okay, this is what this really tastes like. All right, now the only way to reset your palate is to keep introducing new things to it. So if you want to reset your palate, you just did lasagna, you did all the things there. Try something else. Try another thing that's new and different on your next meal. And don't taste the same ingredients, but try something new. And that resets your palate. So it's like, okay, I've never had this before. This is good. Like, I can't think of something off the top of my head that I haven't tasted yet, but you try new things, introduce new things to your palate, and that kind of resets your palate. So be adventurous. Don't just stick with the same things, and don't just woof it down and go, okay, yeah, all right. Spend some time with it and really taste it and really get to understand it and stuff. So some of the things that you should be tasting when you're, trying new things or herbs, spices. There's all kinds of spices from all over the world. You can really introduce some amazing spices from different countries, different continents, all over, different kinds of cuisine. You can go crazy with the spices. Herbs, you can grow herbs in your garden. You can try to taste those, get to understand, get to know and love those, or at least know what they taste like. Vegetables, taste vegetables, lots of vegetables, all of the vegetables, taste them all. Even if you think it's something you're not going to like, taste it so you know what it tastes like. And then you don't have to like it to know the flavor, but it'll be another flavor note in your catalog. Chocolate. Taste things like chocolate, but do like dark chocolate. Do 60% dark chocolate. Do milk chocolate. Do white chocolate. So try all the different levels of chocolate that you can have. The ones with more fat, ones with more sugar, So you could kind of get an understanding of what happens with the chocolate and stuff. Wine is another good one too. There's lots of flavors in wine. So wine is kind of something too you could taste and kind of explore the different flavors and stuff that come from that. But you want to taste everything. Everything. The more you taste, the more you try, the more refined your palate's going to be. Okay? So, you really want to get your flavors and stuff to explode and be able to really pick out flavor notes and stuff. You need to reduce the salt in your diet and your sugar in your diet. Okay? Because salt and sugar blind out tasting. They basically will make it so it's harder to taste things. So if you do crackers as a palate cleanser, no salted crackers. You want no salt on them. You want to cut the salt down because it's one of the reasons why people didn't know this, but you use salt for the tequila because it masks the nasty flavor on the bad tequila. So that's why you do salt with lime or lemon or whatever it is. It's because the salt masks the nasty flavor. So you don't want to have too much salty things or too much sweet things that you're consuming because it will make it more difficult for you to taste things and to really pick up flavors. So cut back on the salt and cut back on the sugar, and don't involve any of them when you're tasting. Except if you do the chocolate, you can. There's not so much sugar in it, but you can taste what it tastes like with the sugar added and stuff to it. But they will hinder your tasting ability if you have too much salt and sugar in your diet. All right, so the first thing that that we're going to do is we were talking. The reason why I gave you a list of all those spices and stuff that we talked about was because, cooked agave. Cooked agave has basically been agreed upon that the best way to describe the flavor profile of cooked agave is to describe it as with cinnamon and baking spices. That has been the consensus of the best way to describe cooked agave. So with that, that's one of the reasons why we have the cinnamon sticks, the cloves, and the nutmeg. And they list allspice and stuff like that too, but allspice is kind of just like a mixture of all of them. So those are the kind of the three elements that make up cooked agave. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, just so we can kind of get an understanding for cinnamon, you always hear me talk about sweet cinnamon. Now, when we taste things, we want to smell them first because a large portion of what you taste actually comes from your smell. Comes from your nose. So that's why if you ever sat down at a restaurant, you'll notice sometimes if the restaurant does it right, they actually serve you from right to left. And the reason why they do that is your right nostril senses things different than your left nostril. So your right nostril can pick up more flavor notes and stuff than your left nostril can. More aromas and stuff. So when they put your meal down, they'll typically do it from right to left across to activate your right nostril first before they activate your left nostril. That's kind of a secret in the restaurant industry on the way like really nice restaurants and stuff will serve you. So open up your cinnamon first, right? We're gonna deal with cinnamon first and be able to really become acquainted and know cinnamon. So mine's got these little holes and stuff in the top. So I'm just gonna use this to start right now. But for my nose, for the nosing of this, I'm just gonna take it and gently just kind of move it back and forth across my nose. And you'll start picking up the hint of cinnamon. Yep, definitely picking up cinnamon. You guys getting it? You guys picking up a little notes of cinnamon coming through when you move it gently across your nose? Don't think, don't just move it back and forth, and you'll you'll pick up a gentle. You'll pick up the cinnamon notes. You guys getting it? Let me know if you're picking it up. And then what'll help you too is if you close your eyes and just wave it gently across your nose. You'll pick up the cinnamon notes. Getting the cinnamon now? Chris says, oh yeah. Okay, so I guess he's getting it. And I like to close my eyes when I do this too, because it actually kind of helps you concentrate. And you can pick up those notes and see what that cinnamon smells like. All right, hold on one second. I gotta get this. Hold on. Keep practicing. I'll be right back. You have to be 21 or older.
So I look 21?
I guess so.
Here.
Just go put those right down there. Right here. I'll get them later. All right, so we're waving cinnamon in front of our nose. Yep, it's cinnamon. All right, so yeah, so just, become real familiar with it on the nose. Yep, there it is. The nose is working. You might be saying, well, this is kind of repetitive and stuff. What you're doing is you're just getting to the point where you're like, I've been smelling cinnamon for so much that I could smell it in anything. We're going to go cinnamon overload. All right. So now that we've been smelling nosing our cinnamon, you keep doing it. Don't stop. Don't stop on my account. But what we can do too is if you really want to get like more, take a cinnamon stick out and then just rub them between your fingers, right? Get some cinnamon on your fingers. Get the oil on your fingers. And then just pinch your fingers underneath your nose. And you'll get the cinnamon notes from it. Hopefully your hands are clean though if you do that. So now next time you sniff tequila, a good Blanco, you'll detect a little bit of the notes from this. Because it'll stick out because you're so used to it. All right, so now flavor-wise, we're going to take a cinnamon stick. I'm just going to get a little bit of cinnamon off of it. Scratch a little cinnamon off with your finger. And then just, you're going to taste it. Or you can even, if you want to, you can even lick the cinnamon stick. And you'll pick up the cinnamon notes. The reason why we did this instead of the ground cinnamon is because it's not so intense. When you use the ground cinnamon, it's going to be more of intense flavor, but this is a little more subdued. So it allows you to really kind of taste it, in a little bit. And if you want to taste it more, you can take one of the cinnamon sticks and just drop it in some water and taste the water with the cinnamon in it, and that'll give you more of a concentrated form. But I just like to take a little bit and scrape cinnamon off of it. And then just taste it that way. And that's what you look for. Those are the notes that you look for when you're looking for cooked agave notes. The sweet cinnamon. I always say sweet cinnamon because it's just this cinnamon note with a little bit of sweetness in it. And then we'll jump into the baking spices here in a little bit. But what are you guys thinking so far? You picking up the cinnamon notes? How's it working for you? Everyone's too busy tasting. Good? You liking it? Chris says this is cool. Chris, are you tasting along with us or what? All right, so you guys just want to keep revisiting this, and if you're not tasting it, sometimes if you had a big dinner with a bunch of different flavors stuff to it, maybe you just need a break from that first before you can really taste it. But revisit it later. Oh, good, you're getting the cinnamon notes. Okay, good. So these are the notes that you're looking for. What is it? Absolutely, but I'm also sipping on my new tequila. Well, you're ruining everything, so that's not helping. By sipping on tequila while you're doing this, you're not helping things out. You shouldn't be sipping on tequila. You want your palate clean. So you're kind of messing it with everything else that you're trying to accomplish by tasting this. I'm not drinking any tequila. I'm sipping. What is that? Oh, you just had a spicy Mexican meal a little while ago. But you got some cinnamon sticks, etc. Okay, good. All right, so that's cinnamon, right? So, if you're done tasting cinnamon, go ahead and rinse your palate out a little bit with some water. I'm going to wash my hands because I have cinnamon oil all over them, so hold on a second. All right, now make sure too, if you wash your hands, don't use scented soap. That's going to throw everything off. All right, so next we're going to look at cloves. Now that we have a good grasp on cinnamon, and you can revisit the cinnamon, I recommend revisiting it. Go back and put stuff in your tasting journal, but revisit it and become really super familiar with it, even to the point where you get sick of it. Yeah, absolutely. The taste of cinnamon is different than the smell. Absolutely. That's why, you taste and you smell things. When you're smelling, it's actually part of your tasting experience. But you can definitely smell things that are different than what you taste when you taste them. The aroma and the smell doesn't have to be identical, and a lot of times it won't be. But write a note on what you taste, kind of, and sorry, I've done this a lot at work. Okay, all right, this will be a rough one. You really don't like the taste. Okay, well, you don't have to like it. It's just becoming familiar with it. That's what we're looking for. All right, so we're gonna do cloves now. So what I did is I just have a clove right here in my hands. Fresh cinnamon has a bitter hotness to it. Okay, I don't get a hotness, but I get just a little bit of a slight bitterness to it, a little bit, but I don't pick up a hotness. Those are, I think, red hot candies are where you get the cinnamon hotness, but I don't get that from from real cinnamon. All right, so we're going to start with cloves. Now, cloves are very strong, very pungent. You don't need a lot of it. So what I do is I'll just take the clove itself and just kind of pinch it between my fingers like this. Right? And then get a little bit of the oil on it and then put the whole clove down, because otherwise it's going to be really strong. And just kind of rub it underneath your nose and go back and forth, and you'll pick up the clove notes. It reminds me a lot, too, of clove cigarettes. When I was in high school, we had people that used to smoke clove cigarettes, and you get the smell coming from it. So I do have like a memory assigned with cloves, so I know the clove smell really well. But it has this really kind of it reminds me of like a forestry kind of nose to it. How would you describe the note, the aroma that you're getting from it? And write it down in your tasting journal. For me, it's kind of like reminds me of like a forest, or like, in the wintertime. I know some people, it reminds them of Christmas. But I like the smell of cloves. Just kind of pick up the notes on it, and become really, really familiar with it. Close your eyes. What is that? It's weird, but reminds me of spiced wafers. Okay, there you go. Spiced wafers. Yeah, I've had a lot of experience with cinnamon, nutmeg, and cloves because when I did beer, I used to do a pumpkin spiced ale that I used to do, or saison, where I used to use nutmeg, cinnamon, and cloves in the boil to flavor the beer, and it was a pumpkin mash in it. It was my holiday beer. So my garage just used to smell of, we throw the cinnamon sticks in first. It just had a nice, strong cinnamon nose to it, so I got used to that. Then we put the cloves in, and you'd smell the cloves. Then you put the nutmeg in, you smell the nutmeg, and we'll get to the nutmeg next. So this is what the notes that we look for in cooked agave. So when you say I'm picking up cooked agave, it's a kind of a sweet cinnamon with kind of a little bit of the clove mixture in it. So you'll pick up the clove that way. And now you can taste it too. So now let's taste the clove. So what I do is I'll just rub the oil on my finger and then taste it. And you can actually just taste the clove too. So when you taste the clove, what are you picking up? What kind of flavor notes are you getting? Yeah, cloves are very unique. So what are you guys tasting on the cloves? Let me hear what you're tasting. Nobody? Nobody's tasting anything? How would you describe the nose, the smell of that? Come on, let me hear what you guys are... Comment. Let me hear what you guys are thinking on the cloves. Cloves is very interesting for me. There's almost like a mintiness that comes from them. It's difficult not just to say clove. For me, it's almost got like a mintiness to them, but it's very earthy. Yeah, there's a little sweetness in there, but it's also, you're picking up a lot of sweetness from the nose, but on the actual flavor though, it's very earthy. It's very earthy. It has this like a slight mintiness to it. Yeah, it does have kind of heat to it. It does have a little heat. Yeah, that's kind of for me, it's kind of represents itself a little bit as minty heat more than pepper heat though. Reminds me of gum. Yeah, it does kind of have a gum, like a winter, what is it? Winter mint, winter. wintergreen-esque kind of flavor to it a little bit. So that's what it tastes like. So with cloves, it's a lot of it is what you're getting though is on the actual aroma, because the flavor profile of it doesn't really have a lot to it. It just has a little bit of a minty heat, to it, but not a whole lot flavor wise. Yeah, winter fresh. Yeah, a little bit. It's a little minty, and has a little bit of heat where it does burn the lips a little bit. But other than that, it's not soup. It's with the nose on it being as super strong as it is. You would expect that you get that kind of that on the flavor, but the flavor is actually quite subdued compared to the nose. So when you picking this up, a lot of it has to do with the aroma. Yeah, kind of like a minty chewing gum with no sweetener. Exactly. Yeah, winter mint, like life. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So kind of different, right? It's not what you would expect it to taste like based on the aroma from it. So that's why tasting with your nose is a big part of it. You'll pick up the aroma part of it when you're tasting it, but not necessarily the actual flavor of it. It's kind of interesting how that works. All right, so let's my fingers smell like cloves. Let's wash your hands up a little bit, and then we'll play with nutmeg here. But don't use any scented soap. So I'm going to wash my hands real quick. All right, I got all the cloves off my fingers. All right, so now we're going to dive into nutmeg. Everybody ready for nutmeg? All right, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to nose the nutmeg. We're going to pick up the aromas on it. How would you describe the nose on this on the nutmeg? Bring on the nutmeg, yes. So how would you describe the nose on the nutmeg? It's kind of almost woody, like it smells like kind of like the woods, right? Did you pick it up as being kind of woody, like a wood board? For me, it has kind of a woody nose to it. Yeah, spiced earth is good too. Definitely earthiness to it. Almost dirty, and it almost has like a dirty nose to it. Pine saw, okay, yeah. I don't think it smells quite as like pine, but it does have a woody kind of nose to it. like a super smooth wood. Okay, great. Smooth. There he goes with the smooth stuff. But it's got that, it smells very earthy, very like wood, almost, you know, a little piney, a little bit of piney, I guess. Yeah, you can pick up a little bit of pininess on it. But it smells good. I mean, so it's now, you know, close your eyes and really kind of get it to the point where you're like, okay. All right. So now that we've nosed this and kind of get an idea of what nutmeg smells like, let's jump in for a little tasting of it. So I'm just going to dab a little bit on my finger. Yeah, just about that much there. And taste it. Okay, slight wood with dry leaves and a hint of campfire. Okay. I don't get the campfire part of it, but I do get I do say wood and dry leaves. I can see that. The campfire, that's kind of an interesting idea. All right, so I'm going to taste, we'll taste this now. It definitely tastes better in cooked in baked goods. But it's kind of interesting flavor profile to it. It's almost a little bit salty. But definitely has like a musty, woody kind of flavor profile to it. Yeah, herby bitterness. That's it. That's a good way to describe it. It does have a bitterness that comes through on the end of it. And it's very earthy. It's very dirty. It's musty. Yeah, musty's. I like musty. Is the way to kind of describe this. So these are the baking spices that you will detect when looking for cooked agave. So it's cinnamon, nutmegs, and cloves. And it's a combination of all three of them. So we're getting the basic foundation now for tasting cooked agave in blancos. So keep tasting these. Go back and revisit them. Become real familiar with them. Write down what you're tasting in your tasting journal. and keep tasting these and revisiting them. Come really familiar with them to the point where, if you taste it, you smell it, you'll know what it is. And then what I recommend doing is actually putting them in some stuff and trying to pick the notes out. So like, an example would be, add a little cinnamon in some tea. And then pick up the cinnamon notes in it, or add it in some water. You can add all three of these in water and try to in a cup of hot water, and just drink it as a tea and try to pick out all the different notes from it. And that'll help you get to the point where you're like, okay, I taste this, I taste that, I taste this, and be able to discern the flavors while you're tasting it. The whole object, though, is you want to become really familiar with these flavors and these aromas in order to know what they are when you get into the tastings of it. And when you're tasting tequila. All right, so what do you guys think? Tastes like bitter old wood. Okay, there you go. I don't like it. It smells better. Yeah. It definitely does smell better. So a lot of times the aroma, though, is what you're actually picking up when you're doing the tasting. It's not necessarily the flavor of it. But you taste with your nose and your mouth when you're tasting things. So, but now you know what it tastes like as well. And that's always good to know what everything tastes like. So a lot of times when you're doing your cooking, when you're baking with baked items, it's not really the flavor of the spices that you're picking up. A lot of times it's what's coming through your nose is what you're picking up. So mix a little bit of this and some hot water together, and see what you pick up on the nose on that. And then when you drink it, you'll actually be picking up the aromas and stuff, and you'll say, okay, yeah, and you'll get more familiar and more familiar with it. And so that's your homework now for until next week, and we'll work on some new things next week, and then I'm going to give you guys some other things to add to the list of things that we're going to get to taste. Let me bring up my list. What is this? Have you ever found it valuable to taste while covering your nose to see how much? Actually, yeah. When I was in culinary classes, we did that, and the thing is that you actually can't taste with your nose covered. You can't taste with your nose. That's why a lot of times when you're sick and your nose is clogged, you can't smell stuff. You can't really taste things either. Everything comes across as being bland. Your nose is a vital part of your tasting. And so we had to do things in culinary class where we actually plugged our noses and then tasted things. And it's like, yeah, your tasting is very muted when you're not working with your nose. So add it to the taste like Christmas. Yeah. So this is going to be your next, some more flavor stuff to, let me see, where's it? I gotta find my list. I think it's on the other computer, so I'll put it on in the community section. I'll add the next items and stuff to get to. But next week we're going to be working with next Tuesday we're going to be working with star anise, vanilla beans, and black pepper. Okay, so we'll do those three next week. Get really familiar with the cinnamon, the cloves, and the nutmeg while you guys over the next week. Just get really, really familiar with it. And then we'll move on to the next things a week from Tuesday. So what do you guys think? Did you like this stuff so far? Are you guys enjoying this? Everyone's been pretty quiet. No, nobody's liking it. Oh, okay. Okay. There you go. Well, good. I'm glad you guys are enjoying it. So I'm going to be doing some reviews this week, and we'll get the reviews up, and we'll talk about the tequilas and stuff on Thursday. Your homework is to keep tasting things and journal it. Write it down in your journal. Keep working with the cinnamon, the cloves, and the nutmeg, and become really super familiar with it. It's important to do that and get to know these flavors. And you definitely like it. Okay, cool. This was an eye-opener on what I thought things tasted. Yeah, it's different, right? That's why it's important to taste everything in building your palate, and smell and taste everything. And you'll open your world up to a bunch of different flavors and stuff. And it's like every time when I was in culinary classes, my chef used to say, taste all of your ingredients separately. Taste them. Taste everything. And then also, it was important to taste while you cook too. So if you're like to cook at home, while you're cooking, always taste. Dip a clean spoon in it and taste a clean fork or whatever, and take a taste of it to see where it's at while you're cooking. And you'll notice, as you add more ingredients to it, the flavors change. But then as you taste all the different ingredients, you can actually in recipes say, what this needs a little bit of this, and that adding it to it, it's not going to adversely affect it. It'll you'll know what to expect from it. So this will help you with cooking at home too, as well. And it's not just only you're building your overall palate in general, not just necessarily for tequila tasting. But we're going to be focusing on mostly the flavors that and the notes and stuff that you'll pick up from tequila for tequila evaluation. What is that? This is awesome. Really appreciate you spending your time. Oh, no problem. My pleasure. I'm glad you guys are enjoying this. All right, so I'll post in the well, let me see if I can. Well, I'll post in the on the YouTube channel in the community section. I'll post the list of the next stuff for what we're going to do next. Okay, you can't wait for the next. Okay, good. So next Tuesday we'll do the second class. But really, it's important that you not give up on this and keep tasting. You take some time during the week to revisit it and become super familiar with it. I know cinnamon, nutmeg, and cloves very well because of my brewing and stuff. I can pick those things out from anything. If somebody makes cookies, I can go, I can tell there's cloves in the cookies. And they'll go, yeah, there is cloves. I can tell there's nutmeg in these. Like, oh, yeah, there's definitely nutmeg in it. Or, hey, I can tell you've got some cinnamon in this. Because I've gotten so familiar with those 3 different flavors because of how I used them in my brewing and stuff like that. My grandfather was also a professional baker. So when I was around his bakery, he was always using these, and I could always pick them out and became really familiar with them. And that's how I know when I'm doing my tasting and I go, I'm definitely picking up sweet cinnamon and baking spices. It's because I know all these things. I'm really familiar with them. And I can also tell you too, when I'm not picking up any cooked agave, because I don't get any of these notes coming through when I'm tasting a tequila. And that's a good sign that there's additives in there or it's over oaked. Because it's masking the cooked agave flavor. All right, well, that's it for tonight, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next Tuesday. Make sure you check the community section here. I'll post some other ingredients you should be getting, adding to the list of the ones that we have now. And we'll see you guys on Thursday for the live stream at 7 p.m. We're doing Thursdays now instead of Fridays. And keep an eye out for the reviews that are coming up as well. And like I always say, life is too short to drink bad tequila. And now you'll be better off on tasting all the wonderful flavors that are involved in tequila. And I'm excited. This is going to be fun. All right, guys. Have a good night. Salud. Bye.